जब मानसिंह की कछवाहा फौज काबुल कंधार कूच कर रही थी तो सिंधु नदी उफान पर थी और इंतहा की सर्दी। सिपाहियों ने अपने घोड़े नदी के उफान में डाल दिए। जंग लंबी थी। राजा मानसिंह को 6 साल लगे फतेह हासिल करने में। फतेह के बाद चौमू सामोद के ठाकुर मनोहर दास ने अफरीदी, रोशनिया, यूसुफ जई, तारिकी और गौरी कबीलों के अलग अलग रंग के झंडों को मिलाकर राजा मानसिंह को सौंप दिया, जिससे आमेर का अपना पंचरंगी झंडा बना। ये पंचरंगा।
This is not the best way to actually experience a show, but and this is not the one I saw. I went to Kurukshetra to see the show, and that show was actually around one water body, one big tree, and one massive tank. And there were these movements which actually gave me goosebumps. And I realized light has a potential to communicate. It has an emotive value. It has, it actually communicates a lot. It can be an actor, it could be a mood, it could set the mood, it could actually set the scene, it can communicate a lot. And that's where my exploration with actually light started. This is one of my shows that we worked on in Ajmer. This one is in Orcha Palace. This was one of the settings, mood, that we tried to actually create. And the same space with different lighting actually changed how we perceive the space. This is Jantar Mantar in Jaipur. Here we had a big challenge. This was more of an sculpture in terms of canvas, and the content was a lot more technical. So we actually had to use projection along with the light. So what essentially through shows, what we are doing is we're narrating the story of the place with light and sound as the main medium, and a lot of times now being supplemented with projections. So we are actually just telling the story of the monument. Now coming back to Amer, in this context, we didn't have those architectural details. We had these massive walls which had to be used. So the canvas scale completely changed. This is another mood, another scene that was being projected on the fort. And actually, this is what it looks like. In the video, the last scene where you have the flag coming up, this is what it really looks like. Amer, this is the front facade of the Amer. This is an aerial view, but the show happened on the facade. But the inside, there are 4 courtyards. That one is the Jaleb Chowk, Diwane Am, Diwane Khas, and Mansingh Mahal. What we were also involved with was the lighting up the inside. Now, the brief given to us was just to light it up, but what we thought was, what if we actually create a story for people who are actually going inside the monument at the night? So there were 3 themes that we came up with. They already had an audio guide system in place. We thought probably light can actually support the narrative. Second theme was where people could just wander around the monument with lights being there. And third was these spaces being available for any event that they might want to do at any point of time. This one is the first courtyard called the Jaleb Chowk, so it was actually kept very simple. Only the architectural details very subtly were picked up. This one is the second courtyard, which was Diwane Am, but this was also the entrance to Diwane Khas. And this is actually iconic gateway from Rajasthan, so we actually wanted to do a little more than keep it simple. And also this is a view from where it becomes part of the narrative with the audio guide. The third courtyard, also called the Sheesh Mahal, was actually, during the day it worked as a private court, but in the evenings it was also part of the pleasure garden, not really the pleasure garden, but that's where the king would actually spend a lot of their evenings. And the landscape was also inspired by the Mughal gardens. The use of white, these kind of spaces were actually best enjoyed under full moon light. That's why a lot of use of white. And once you have full moon and you want to use the full moon, you need to have rest of the ambient light low. And in Sheesh Mahal, as most of the guides would do when they take you inside, they'll just light up a match and show you. Sheesh Mahal has these small mirrors in the ceiling. And what they do is the moment they light up a match, the flame is reflected in each of these mirrors and you see a starry night. And we wanted to try and recreate these two experiences over here. So this is another view of the Sheesh Mahal from front. So what we did was we tried to explore how traditionally these oil lamps were used. And of course we couldn't use these old ones, but we tried to integrate electrical light in them. And we tried to develop our own system because we didn't want to light up the architectural elements over there, but actually create that setting for that place. Unfortunately, this wasn't implemented the way we wanted. This image is actually a little too dark, but if you see, the lighting was actually very subtle. It's actually replicating the blue full moon light, and with only some of the architectural details very subtly picked up. I don't know if you can see over there. And lighting was meant to be minimalist over here. Even when lighting up the columns, we were very aware it's a heritage monument, it's marble, we cannot damage it. So all the lights that had to be installed were around the column, in a conduit which could take the cables, and the light could be inserted in that. So we didn't actually damage the fabric at all. The last courtyard, which is Baradari or the Mansingh Mahal, this was one opportunity where congregation could happen. So what we tried to do was explore different qualities of space that we could actually create over here. These are all renders. So here the enclosure disappears, but the object in the middle becomes important. Here the enclosure is there, but the inside space inside the Baradari becomes more important. And this is what we finally actually achieved over there. The next project is Ghat Ki Goony Garden. These actually lie on Jaipur-Agra highway. They're outside the city. These are almost a kilometer-long gardens, again inspired by the Mughal gardens and the planning. So that's the highway, and on the right lie the gardens, and they're lined with the pavilions on the side. Again, the idea of designing these gardens earlier was, of course, you could enjoy them during the day, but I think the weather conditions make them best suited for the evening and under moonlight. So a lot of these gardens used a lot of white surfaces, and also the landscape would have white flowers and all. We wanted to try and recreate that. We didn't want to put bollards, we didn't want to put post stops, we didn't want to make the light hardware visible over here. So our strategy was to actually light up the man-made structures, which were the pavilions inside, and let the light reflect from there onto the landscape, so that little soft ambient light could make those white flowers, white landscape, and the other surfaces visible. So this is one of the structures, and the insides are lit, and from the chhajjas is where we're bouncing off the light around. It's a little dark, photograph is a little dark, it's not very obvious over here, but the intervention was supposed to be minimalist. This is another view of Ghat Ki Goony, the pavilions along the highway, a detailed view of that. This is another project. We were involved with lighting up of 15 monuments in Delhi. Delhi, everyone knows, has a lot of heritage and a lot of monuments. And these monuments are actually the tiny, small monuments which actually have been lost in the neighborhood with a lot of construction around, and not too many people, even in Delhi, know about these. Some of them don't even have their names. So this project just happened before the Commonwealth Games. We went through an entire exercise of identifying the value, the significance of it in terms of the urban context, history, story. And what we wanted to actually do was see if we could build a narrative through light for these monuments. Unfortunately, because the numbers were just 15, we couldn't really do it, but that was the attempt that we wanted to do, and this is a collage of what we did over there. One of these monuments was Mutiny Memorial. This is a sandstone structure, very intricately detailed and carved, but the flooring is also sandstone, but relatively new stone. The challenge here was how do we light it up and again not damage the structure. So most of the lights were around the plinth. Some were recessed in the floor right outside on the floor, which was relatively new. And of course, there were lights inside. The biggest challenge came for the lights which were being placed inside. We devised a way of taking the cables along the staircase and place a ring on the bay window which were on top so that we could run the cables. And the lights were actually mounted on a metal clamp which was just simply placed on the louvers which was inside these windows. So again, our strategy was not to even drill a single hole in the monument. The other one is called Gol Gumbad. It lies on the intersection of two major roads in the city. One connects the Humayun's tomb to Safdarjung, and the other one from the central hexagon India Gate to all the way down to South Delhi. So it's a very prominent monument, and it also lies next to a very popular hotel, 5-star hotel. This is the day view. The monument is somewhere there. You can't even see it. It's hidden between the trees. And during the day, the most important landmark in this area is the hotel, and it's known by that monument, by that landmark. This is a view, two images of before and after, how suddenly after light. Of course, this is not just lighting because there was a lot of restoration work that happened. This monument was lime plastered again, so it got a lot of white. Here there is just the brown stone, which brown doesn't reflect too much light, so obviously it looks dark. But restoration and adding the light made it absolutely evident, obvious in the nightscape. So this is what it looks like at night. Everything is dark, but that stands out. The hotel at the back actually kind of disappears. So the landmark of that junction changes in the night, and the monument actually comes into the forefront. On World Diabetes Day, this monument was turned blue. So some of these monuments also provide us a canvas to celebrate or communicate certain other meanings. So this was the monument, which had a very warm orange, almost like a light lantern, glowing like a lantern. It also had this space outside which was landscaped and also lit. This gave an opportunity for people to visit the monument in the evening and spend some time. Slowly this monument actually became a part of the city fabric. And it's not only during the night, it was also during the day. These are the 15 monuments we worked on, but Delhi has more than probably 1,000 monuments, small monuments I'm talking about. And the idea was, if a place like city where in our everyday life we miss out on the monuments, and at night with light, if they can actually come to the forefront, what would happen if instead of 15, all of them were lit? There was a narrative developed, and how the identity of Delhi could actually have another layer added to it. This is a museum we worked in Jaipur's City Palace. The objects being displayed are very sensitive, so one had to make sure we don't overlight them because light can actually damage them. Light levels were kept as low as 50 lux, which is probably 1/4 the light which is falling on me right now. So we had to be very careful with that. Technically, also in terms of when we're dealing with low light levels, we need to make sure the light is soft and it's not harsh, because otherwise it can actually be very disturbing. This is another same museum, but a space where we had a very clear brief from the museum designer. They wanted a red tunnel, and with the light coming from a cove at the bottom. For me, this is not the best way to light up a gallery, because this cove will always end up being really brighter than the light on the display itself. So, but we still took it up as a challenge, and we thought, let's see what we can actually do over here. We had to actually detail out the cove We calculated the curvature, and this curve actually has these small ribs. We had to work out the diameter of the ribs as well so that we actually maximize the light that is reflected back onto the display instead of it becoming a matter of glare in the cove. The last project I want to talk about is the lighting master plan for the President Estate. The lighting master plan was actually part of a larger conservation master plan that was developed for the place. The first thing that we actually did was to actually analyze and understand the site itself. The President Estate, President Rashtrapati Bhavan, the President House is here with a huge piece of land behind. You have one vista which connects the Wellington Crescent behind, and the other vista over there. Both of them are actually access towards the main dome. And then you have a huge core, open core in the middle. We analyzed the experience of the estate, and we also identified the heritage structures which were part of the entire estate. Now, this was part of the entire analysis that we were actually doing over here. The other thing that we wanted to analyze and study was the lighting fabric that was put in place originally by Latins in the estate itself. So there was, again, a study and analysis that we did for the lighting fabric. And just one example was these columns made out of completely sandstone were used inside the President Estate. The second one were outside the President Estate, but still for areas like North Block and South Block. And rest of the city had these cast iron simpler poles. And we identified this hardware and tried to just simplify and use these same things in our proposal. This was a study between the expression during the day and night. This is what the President Estate looks like during the day, but the dome at night, the entrance at night just takes away from the monumentality and the stature of the monument itself. Gates during the day, very easily, prominently visible, identifiable, but at night they just disappear. Similarly, with other areas where you have this roundabout which at night disappears, road, the vista with the clock tower in front, road is not visible, clock tower is not visible at all. We studied the existing lighting hardware that was there and the color that was used. So one can actually see the entire strategy not being in place, it actually being a mixed match of everything. And we also looked at the type of hardware that was installed. So there were 18 different types which were installed over there, and which actually did, instead of contributing to the identity of the place, were actually taking away from it. The other thing that we wanted to actually deal with was the ecological concerns which relate to lighting. The biggest thing that is light can, besides wastage of energy caused by spill light, it can also damage the environment. It causes a lot of light pollution, and light pollution is what we see as a glow in the night in the sky is light pollution, but it can have severe ramification on the flora, fauna of the place. So coming to the strategies, what we wanted to do was reconnect the President Estate with the city. We identified and created a hierarchy of roads based on the significance for the built fabric, the open spaces. We then worked on the lighting color strategy for the roads, similarly for the building and the open spaces, and came up with the detailed lighting master plan. Each of these areas were actually detailed out, like for example, the vista, how do we establish the experience of the vista, the clock tower in the middle, how do we express that, and how do we create different other experiences within the vista, and they were all detailed out. The clock tower in the vista. The open areas, this is exactly the same principle on which Latins had worked out his lighting, and we follow the same principle and with the same hardware. This is the central core where the logic was how the landscape intent was the man-made built transits into a man-made landscape, a little more of landscape, and then merges into the forest, and that's what we try to do with the lighting. The building is lit. We use taller post-op lights with higher output here. We bring the lighting levels and the height lower, and slowly it disappears as it meets the ridge. And this is the hardware strategy that we developed for the master plan, and these are the different types that were used. And also, besides, instead of just using what existed, what we wanted to do was adapt newer technology so that we can retain the earlier aesthetics, but integrate technology. What earlier the lamp used to be here, there used to be a lot of spill light, a lot of wastage, environment, light pollution, and it wasn't effective. So what we proposed was to actually have indirect light coming from top, source being here, which is reflected from the top, and it's only where light falls only where it's needed. The same strategy was developed for the gates. This is another project where this is the Humayun's tomb, and that's the Red Fort. The idea of this project was to integrate the monument with the everyday city life. And the light, again for here, we developed a master plan, how this is the main axis, the main road, this is the Purana Killa monument, how lighting could actually integrate the fabric at night. Thank you.